This is Dale Wilcox, who is the executive director of the Immigration Reform Law Institute, a friend of this program, and a man that always makes these things clear for us. The strangeness of our immigration law, which is everyone in the country and in the world this week and last week has been witnessing the insanity of our immigration law. Dale, welcome to the program this evening.
Hey, it's good to be with you both. I hope to help dispel some of the wild misrepresentations and sensualization and flat-out lies that have been flying around regarding this family separation alleged policy.
I mean, it couldn't be. I mean, hey, I had no idea that we had concentration camps apparently in this country until I started listening to MSNBC and CNN, and they were telling me that we have Auschwitz here. Who knew? Who knew? You know, and apparently, yeah. So this is the level of discourse that we have in this country. You know, it's gone completely cuckoo. But I want to get your take on a couple of different stories, Dale, to unravel the craziness of our immigration laws. First off, I want to play for you a clip that was on CNN today between the CNN correspondent Paulo Sandoval and Jake Tapper. And Paulo Sandoval is at one of the detention centers, or one of the, the holding centers, in McAllen, Texas, and he was talking about his interview with someone who crossed the border illegally and was separated temporarily from his son. Let's listen to clip 11.
Back for a court date. We accompanied him to a bus station here in downtown McAllen as he heads to Florida. He was not subjected to the zero tolerance policy, which is raising many questions. Exactly who is and why was he among the lucky ones? He seems to believe that it was because he did not have a criminal record. This was his first time he entered the U.S. Illegally. In the meantime, though, Mr. Gonzalez telling us about the situation back in his native El Salvador, saying that there are many people there, many parents there, preparing to make the journey to the United States who have no idea about this policy.
In my country, I wasn't notified of this policy. Had I known, I would not have risked my son's life. I would have stayed in my country.
Gonzalez separated from his 7-year-old son, who you saw there by his side for a day and a half. It was certainly extremely painful. However, he is certainly grateful that he at least has that child with him today. They also told us a little bit about the situation there inside these shelters. These are places that we have seen through handout video and pictures released by the government. And also, we've heard from some of our lawmakers who have toured these facilities as well. These two individuals who we spoke to here on the streets, Jake, describing some of the conditions there as inhumane before they were finally released and now headed to Florida. But it just goes to show you, after living and working on this border for many years, I can tell you that there are very different dynamics here at play. There are some of those that are subjected to short-term separation and those who are criminally charged that are then subjected to long-term separation. But those children certainly don't know the difference.
Okay. There was a lot of crazy things in that clip. I mean, the level of loony. Okay, first off, what jumped out at me, the first time I heard that clip was that, this guy is saying that I wasn't informed in my home country that if I cross the United States border illegally, I'll be separated from my son. If I had known that, I wouldn't have done it. And I'm hearing that, I'm saying, yay, the policy's working. Yes, that's exactly how we want them to. That's what we want the message to be. If you come across our border illegally with a child, you'll be separated from the child for, don't come across our border illegally. If that's the deterrence aspect of this, then good. They got the message, because he's saying I wouldn't have done it. Second, the idea that he expected to be informed, as if he didn't understand point blank that it was wrong to cross our border illegally. That to me is crazy. And then the third, which is this notion that, because they're not being thrown in jail for many years, suddenly they're not being charged with it, or that doesn't constitute them being, held or something. We basically just released him back into Mexico and said goodbye. That's exactly the way it's supposed to be. Am I incorrect in that? I mean, there's a lot of false reporting in this. Unpack it for us, please, Dale.
Okay. So in 2009, the Obama administration began releasing people who come to the border or who are caught and then say, I have a credible fear of persecution in my home country. So we started this catch and release policy. And what happened? We went from 5,000 credible fear reviews in 2009 to 94,000 in 2016. So what has happened is the word has gotten out, the border's open. And all you have to do is say these magic words that you fear persecution in your homeland, and you get to stay. Well, wouldn't it be great if the word has gotten to them that, no, the border's not open, you will be prosecuted because, newsflash, it's illegal. It's a crime to enter the United States without inspection, without presenting yourself at a port of entry. And just as an aside, the administration has made it very clear that no children are being separated from parents when the parents present themselves to immigration officers at a port of entry and claim asylum. The parents aren't being charged with a crime, nor are the families being separated. So, clearly here, this word does need to trickle down, but we don't have an obligation worldwide to notify people of our immigration laws. I would assume that
it was just like, I thought it was a given, that if you break that we have laws here, you can't break them. But,
well, would it hurt? Actually, would it hurt to do that? I remember in the last administration, the Obama, I think it was the Department of Agriculture was spending advertising dollars south of the border to inform potential migrants about how to get on American welfare systems, how to take advantage of food stamp programs and things like that. Why couldn't we do an advertising campaign that says you cannot come to the border illegally, and to tell people that they should turn to the nearest U.S. embassy or consulate if they want to apply for asylum, rather than paying a smuggler $5,000 to take them to Texas and throw them into the brush? I mean, wouldn't it be a good idea to tell people to do a kind of PR campaign and let them know? Isn't that a more effective way than hoping word trickles down the line?
Sure. I think it would be effective. Why not
absolutely.
put our money there? It's definitely an option, and maybe those who are crafting the bills currently can consider this. It would be a good use of taxpayer funds, because the way we're headed, this train wreck is just.
Immigration Reform Law Institute. Now, Dale, your fellow immigration lawyers are busy at work, because not only are they busy at work, many of them coaching up people on how to make asylum claims and claim credible fear, giving them the buzzwords that they need to tell our immigration officials at ports of entry in order to get in. But they're also busy, apparently, we learn, helping people file lawsuits against us. Because this evening we hear that there is a Guatemalan woman who is currently an asylum seeker, but she also crossed the border illegally. She is now suing our federal government because she claims that because she was forcibly, as she puts it, separated from her son after she crossed the border illegally in May. We believe this is the first of these kinds of legal complaints about the whole separation issue. And this particular complaint, it's really quite remarkable, because for a number of reasons. One, because it is the first of its kind, but two, because she's claiming here that part of her argument, her brief, is that she's not facing criminal prosecution despite jumping the border between our ports of entry. And therefore, she's calling this our zero tolerance policy inconsistent. And in her legal argument, she claims that the Trump administration, quote, has separated hundreds of migrant families for no legitimate purpose, end quote. So because apparently she didn't have the book thrown at her, she's now saying that, hey, it wasn't worth it. And when I say that she didn't have the book thrown at her, she actually did file for, or she actually got out on a bond that she posted. She posted a $12,000 and $500 bond to get out. Right. So what in the world is she talking about?
Well, I've actually read her complaint that was filed today in federal court in the District of D.C. and of course, all we have is her complaint, so it's her side of the story. These facts haven't been challenged yet by DHS. They won't be required to answer her complaint for some time, but she's alleging that the government has violated her due process rights by separating her from her 7-year-old child. She's claimed asylum. Her grounds for asylum were domestic abuse. Well, the Attorney General settled that last week in his overruling of several Board of Immigration Appeals precedents that was they were creeping toward opening the door to just about everybody in Central America by claiming that domestic abuse or gang violence, individual crime committed against you, is a ground for asylum. It's not. U.S. asylum law is very specific. You have to prove you've been persecuted or the government has threatened to persecute you based on 5 grounds. Domestic abuse is not one of them. So I don't understand. I've read the complaint. I don't understand how she has even passed the first phase of the asylum process. But let's say she has. She's complaining that they haven't prosecuted her. Makes no sense. But further, the crux of her complaint is the government has violated her due process and her child's due process rights to be together. There is no such due process rights for an alien. Let me be clear. Aliens have an ascending scale of rights under our Constitution, and it's really based with their connection with the United States. You know, the more substantial your connection is, the higher on the scale you get protections. An alien who jumps the border like she did, guess what? You're at the lowest rung of the ladder, okay? Your protections are what Congress says they are, and Congress has said if you come here and claim a credible fear, you get a hearing before a credible fear officer, then you get to go before an immigration judge, and that judge will decide. There's that process. While you're being held lawfully because you jumped the border, the United States government can separate you from your children. She was being held in detention. So as you stated earlier, under the Flores settlement and under the 2008 trafficking victims law, the U.S. government is not allowed to hold children in detention centers, adult detention centers. So, the government has its hands tied. They've given the kid over to HHS. And, I mean, these kids are being well provided for. And I've seen Joel has written on this himself on the comfortable conditions these kids are in at these detention centers that are holding them separately from the adults. So anyway, this alien does not have the due process rights she thinks she has or the level that she thinks she has. I feel that the lawsuit is meritless. It's not going to go anywhere.
She's also, this is the kicker for me. She is also seeking financial damages for, quote unquote, the pain and suffering arising from the separation, and the, quote unquote, punitive damages for the conscious disregard for her rights. For her rights.
She's brought Bivens claims, which are basically, in addition to asking for injunctions and declaratory judgments, but Bivens basically tort claims against individual officers, Sessions and Nielsen, and she's going after them personally in their personal capacity, not just as the Attorney General, and she's seeking compensation, monetary damages from them for what they've done to her. But, I would ask, so putting yourself and your child in the hands of human traffickers, cartels to make the journey northward and did not maybe damage your child in any way or risk your child's well-being. You're concerned that the United States government, and in there they actually allege that we don't know what the government's doing to, my child. Seriously?
Wow.
I mean, You just participated in you're a co-conspirator to cartels and human traffickers.
Amazing. I mean, it's so outrageous. Now, by the way, it's not as if this woman herself wrote this very complex legal, suit. I mean, give me a break. Who are they trying to fool? This is all being done by organizations that believe in open borders. This is so outrageous. They are totally gaming the system, and they've been doing this for quite some time. And they've been coaching people up on how to abuse our system, and it's just outrageous that our lawmakers will do nothing about this. Dale, final question before we let you go. What do you believe is the solution to all of this?
Well, I think, Congress needs to take this in hand as far as changing the law regarding whether parents and kids can be held together. The president has his hands tied. He has two options here, okay? His options are arrest and prosecute the illegal alien adults who arrive at the border with their minors, or release the entire family into the U.S., never to be seen again, which is catch and release, and which has been going on for quite some time. And there are no consequences, okay? Those are the two choices, unless the law is changed. So this 2008 trafficking victims law needs to be revised. The Flores settlement needs to be dealt with. And Congress, quite frankly, needs to contribute money toward detention beds. Currently, I think the family detention system can only hold up to 2,700 individuals, okay? There are a lot more coming across. I think last month alone, 50,000 people tried to come across our border. So Congress needs to provide the resources to increase detention space if we are going to keep the families together.
All right,
let me ask you one question before we let you go. Actually, there's just some breaking news here from the AP. There's been some question about what happens to the youngest children when their parents immigrate illegally or cross the border illegally. And the Associated Press is reporting that there are at least 3, quote-unquote, tender age shelters in South Texas. And apparently I just saw on MSNBC that they're trying to build a fourth, or to create a fourth. Now, obviously, this is going to dominate the news cycle for the next 24 hours because every new revelation is shaped and, in a way, framed to take the debate in that direction. So now we're going to be talking about toddlers and infants who are separated from parents. And the country is going to debate that. What is the perspective, I guess, of your organization on it, and what is there that we need to know as the bullets, rhetorically at least, hopefully, start flying across the airwaves about this?
Well, what I've heard from the administration is when the child is of nursing age, they're not being separated. Those detention beds and whatnot are being used. Families are being kept together. So if they're of a really tender age and they're still nursing, they're kept together. So those news media stories that have stated to the opposite are not true. Toddler age and above, they're going to have to go under these under the settlement agreement and the 2008 law. They're going to have to go to these detention facilities. And we say detention facilities. I mean, they're being held, but they're being held by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and they're being treated very nicely, and they're being provided, meals and shelter and education. This is where we find ourselves, and the administration is boxed into a corner, and until the law is changed and these loopholes are closed, they have no choice to do what they're doing. Otherwise, this influx, this increase, is only going to continue. I think credible fear claims have increased 1,700% from 2008 to 2016. I mean, this is a problem that we've got to deal with. We can't keep pushing it off.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the Democrats want to do. Dale, I want to again thank you so much for coming on our program, and I encourage our listeners to check out your work at the Immigration Reform Law Institute.